Hey there! All right, so I'm hopping on here to talk to you today about a topic that I get asked about a lot, but I've never formally addressed because frankly, I felt like I don't necessarily have all the answers for it. But I think I have a few pieces of advice and just a few tidbits of knowledge, I guess, to offer in this topic. And the topic is, not to keep you in suspense, how do I and our family, how do we make homeschooling work in our lives with healing from Lyme disease and the types of healing regimens that we do, the holistic lifestyle we live, and with working and other stuff that we have on our plates? It's a lot, right? There's no magic formula for this, but in the day and age we're in now, at the time of this video recording, COVID-19 has been a thing that has impacted all of our lives, and a lot of people are finding themselves in the situation of homeschooling, and I quote that term because that looks different for everyone. Schooling in their home, virtual schooling, all that stuff. There are similarities and differences to traditional homeschooling versus virtual schooling. Try saying that 10 times fast. But I'm not here to get into all the nuances of that. What I'm talking about today is our homeschooling journey, which has been for us to choose and implement our own curriculums and lesson plans. We don't, we utilize the help of like a co-op or like a homeschool community for some of our classes and stuff. But aside from that, I do all the planning, teaching, and implementing of our schedule, and we do what would probably look like traditional homeschooling if you were to look at what that looks like. It's not cyber schooling or virtual schooling or those options that some people have chosen for education for their kids. So to be clear on what we're doing, that is what we have always done and what we always wanted to do. And it was a goal of mine, and this is why it's an important topic for me to talk about for those that identify. It was a goal of mine even before I was sick with Lyme disease and was starting a healing journey from, stuff that was kind of spiraling out of control in my health. I always wanted to homeschool my kids in life, even when I was a kid. Now, I did grow up homeschooled, and I had a really good experience growing up homeschooled. So I start with that caveat. But if you didn't grow up homeschooled, you're still equipped to homeschool your kids. If you did grow up homeschooled and you had a rotten experience or it didn't serve you very well, you're still equipped to homeschool your kids, and it doesn't mean they're going to have the same experience you did. You get to shape that. And if you think, oh my gosh, this doesn't apply to me, I never want to homeschool my children, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You never know. I'm just going to say that. You never know what's going to come down the pike. Hello, coronavirus, right? So a lot of people are homeschooling now that never thought they would rip that Band-Aid off, never thought they would even look into that. I'm just saying. So the first thing I just want to say generically is that truly anyone can do it. And you can do it well if you set your mind to it. And I think a lot of people shortchange themselves with their mentality, thinking, I could never teach my kid. We don't get along. We butt heads. I don't want to confuse my role as a mom with teacher. Yes, all those things are legitimate, like hurdles or bumps in the road, but it doesn't mean you can't homeschool your kid. It doesn't mean that. I'm just saying. Mindset is everything. And you know what? You can set yourself up for success if it is a goal that you have to do, right? Or if you're forced to do it, right? So, I'm happy to talk more even on that subject another time. However, for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about homeschooling and healing at the same time. So this is part of my journey. The fact that we homeschool our kids and have this like homesteading in suburbia lifestyle. This is what we wanted. My husband and I both, even before we were together, like we agreed on this from the beginning. That doesn't have to be everyone's journey, but that's just ours. So I'm just telling you where we're coming from. It does help to be on the same page as your spouse. So again, I'm not here to give advice on that as much as to say, like, you got to work through that if you're on different wavelengths. But I advise at least talking to some other people and getting some input from other people that are going through the journey. My husband's always happy to talk to other guys or other people, women too, that are on, the fence or want input from both sides of the spouse perspective. And And the payoff for us has been, we could have never predicted this, right? We wanted to do this. When we were married, we knew at that point I had Lyme disease, and shortly into our marriage, a few years into our marriage, we're pregnant, and then found myself in actual, finally good treatment for Lyme. Great. But even through all of that, we still wanted to homeschool. We wanted to find a way to make that work, and we weren't going to let my healing journey stop us. It turns out the benefit in all that was, and we couldn't have predicted this back then, is that some of my kiddos have ended up with tick-borne illnesses and Lyme disease included in that. And on their own healing journeys now, it's been to our benefit to have the homeschool option in our family, because we've been able to have them home with us, tailor their healing needs to their schooling needs, right? And kind of make their education work for our family's well-being, and put our health as a top priority. If we need more sleep, we can do that. If we need a nap break, we can do that. If we need a day off, we can do that and make it up anytime. There's no like school hours really in our house. Learning can happen at any point in time. So the flexibility and freedom there has actually really been to our benefit in our healing journey. The flip side is, yes, there's planning and work and preparation involved that I wouldn't have if my kids went to school. But the way I look at it is, a lot of parents are still helping with homework or still involved in their kids' education in a lot of big ways, helping out at schools, attending events, again, coronavirus aside in this case. But still, even with all that, there's a lot of involvement parents are doing that homeschooling might actually not be that much more work than you're already kind of putting in. Sorry about that. I just got a phone call, so we're just going to move right on. So how do we make it work for us so that we are giving our kids a quality education, the best we can give them? We're meeting standards because we live in a state that has high standards for homeschooling. Fine, we have to meet those to stay above board, and we want to do that. How do we do the best for our kids and what they need? Well, the first thing I can advise is grace. Grace for everyone, starting with yourself, as let's assume maybe the mom is the primary teacher, but again, that doesn't even have to be the case. Principal daddy can also be, we joke about daddy being the principal and mommy being one of the main teachers, but I got to be honest with you, we have a lot of grace in that area, because there are days that I am deep in my healing journey, shall we say, and struggling more physically perhaps, or mentally or emotionally, and Cameron has to step up and fill in some of those gaps. Cameron's my husband, if you don't already know him. He's fabulous, and it works out really well. I know what he excels in as a teacher, so I can save those things maybe for him to do with the kids. If he has to do all of it, he can and will. Is it different? Yeah, it's different than mama doing it, but there's grace for all of that. There's grace for kiddos and their developmental abilities, their healing wherever they're at, whoever the kids are. Like, my kids are healing from some big stuff, but you could have kids healing from trauma or emotional distress, or, just working through some neurodevelopmental stuff. If you've got kids with some ADD type things, ADHD type things, or other neurodevelopmental, I don't want to say issues, but stuff going on, there's a lot of grace available to you, because you can cultivate that grace. You are the giver of the grace as the overseer of your homeschool. And so it can't be overstated enough. Grace is underestimated in the homeschooling world, especially when you're trying to heal and achieve excellence in homeschooling at the same time. And on that same note, excellence in homeschooling is also a matter of grace too. Sometimes the best you can give isn't going to be the best you can give another time. It might be a little less or a little more or whatever on a spectrum. But that's the point too. At the end of the day, there are many, many years of education ahead of your kids. And so a little bit of time stepping back or stepping forward and accelerating a little, if that's where you're at, is okay. It all kind of evens out as time goes on. And there should always be room for grace. Okay, so I emphasize that one fully. The second tidbit that I touched on in the grace component as well is sharing the load of responsibility. And I mean that not just with your spouse, but that's what I talked about earlier, sharing the load with your spouse or partner, but also sharing the load with your kiddos and your community. It takes a village. And that's not to be used tritely, but sometimes we have to think outside the box of what we might normally be used to and the help we might normally be used to accepting, receiving, and having around us, and kind of look at how else we can outsource some things. There might be some online schooling that can be done to help ease your load if you're healing and wanting to homeschool at the same time. You have to decide if that's in your family's best interest, in your learner, your child's best interest. Your children are capable of a lot. Where can they help out? A lot of times, actually, my older girls love to teach my younger siblings, my younger kiddos, their kindergarten and preschool type learning. And sometimes I can outsource that easily because they want to do it. So, okay, it might let me have some time for whatever is needed in my healing journey or in my household work or my homesteading. So, get all your kids singing the alphabet together, and pretty soon your kindergartner is going to be A-okay with their letters. You know what I'm saying? So don't underestimate the power of your children, your spouse, and your community coming around you and helping. Maybe we are in homeschool co-op. We love being in a community once a week, making friends that way. Me having mama support is huge. Don't underestimate that either. If that is for you and for your family, go for it. There's plenty of communities out there everywhere you go that can help support you and uplift you and take some of the load off of you, right? So there are other ways to outsource too. There's online stuff, like I mentioned, Outschooling or Outschool, I guess what it's called. I don't know. There are online programs. There's online curriculum. So you have options. That's all I'm saying. You have options. Maybe you can even just collaborate with another homeschool mama you meet, and one day a week switch kids and take turns teaching, or take all the kids and take turns teaching them all at once, so the other mama gets a break. You be creative, my friend. It's really the sky's the limit kind of a situation for creativity in that realm. And finally, the third tidbit of information that I think I can provide is know with laser focus your priorities. If homeschooling is a priority to you, then prioritize it and do it to the best of your ability, and take those days that are good days for you physically and mentally and emotionally, and make them count, and plan ahead and do the best you can do with grace, also being on your mind always. In my case, the government also keeps me accountable because I have to meet their regulations and requirements for us to continue to do what we want to do. But whatever holds you accountable to that goal, make that a priority in your life. At the end of the day, I love the saying, better done than perfect, right? Just get her done, and the pieces will fall into place. But you've got to do it to have an outcome. You've got to produce something to have an outcome at the other side of it. You will learn as you go. You will adjust as you go. You will have to be open to that. However, if it is a priority to you to try something like homeschooling, I know, number one, that you can do it. And I know, number two, that sometimes you just have to rip the Band-Aid off and go for it. All right. You guys, I'm rooting for you. If you are a homeschooler, or if you're thinking about homeschooling, I would love to hear a little about your story. Drop a comment for me so that I can get to know about you and your goals, and I can support you. I will definitely be rooting for you and voting your victories. And I welcome any questions and any discussion you want to have. All right. Cheers to you all. Bye.